Welcome back to Brain Chatter, where we listen past the daily noise and explore topics at the intersection of leadership, workplace culture, profit, and sustainability. This podcast is produced by Ken Chapman and Associates Incorporated. I'm your host, Derek Brown. To see episode notes and read more about any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit brainchatterpodcast.com. Today's episode is Recipe for a Company Growth Culture, the Taziki's and Greek Street Story. Our guest is Keith Richards, who, along with his wife, Amy, founded Taziki's in 1998 after a vacation to Greece where they picked up the inspiration. The restaurant brand now has over 90 locations. Taziki's also happens to be my favorite fresh casual restaurant. Keith also opened Greek Street, a new fresh casual approach inspired by urban food in Athens. Welcome to Brain Chatter, Keith.
Thanks for having me, Derek. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I have a lot of questions I'm looking forward to asking you. Let's talk about the culture. Building and maintaining a strong culture for any organization is challenging, as we know. It takes a lot of work. Of course, I know because that's what our firm helps companies with daily. It's something that hits the bottom line in a direct way, a big way. It's extra challenging when someone has many locations spread out like you do, and some are corporately owned, some are franchises. What have you found works best when it comes to building and maintaining the strong company culture that you want and that keeps you competitive?
You know, how does the culture start to me? It starts with Keith Richards. It started with Amy Richards, 24 years ago. And what did we expect? Number one, out of our employees, and what were we going to bend on? And so we had to create that culture of, number one, caring for our employees. You got to earn that trust. When we opened Taziki's, I'm on the line, I'm on the grill, I'm on the roll-ups, I'm on the salad table. I just couldn't walk in, demand, hey, make this and turn around and leave and go play golf. It was when you're building a brand and you are building that culture, is that they look to you. You're the leader. How do you get that, number one, how do you get that respect? And that's what I tell our employees and our new GMs coming aboard, is that you get the respect by working with these people. We've created a culture in Taziki's that everybody works. Everybody has to work. We have to be courteous. We have to be loyal. We have to be. I'm a very passionate person when it comes to life and my family and my employees. I love all those. I think the foundation is you got to understand what's the target. What are we striving for? How do I create a brand? The culture comes with it that people are going to, number one, enjoy working for me, working with me, and working beside me, and they know my passion. And I think that's how we started in Taziki's, was the passion, working side by side and create a culture that believes in what we do. I mean, like I said earlier, I am so fortunate. I mean, I couldn't do this alone. So I have a great team that I look at and go, man, these guys have been with me. I mean, I've got one store that half the staff has been there for 15 plus years. That's
Wow.
rare. That's rare. So why is that? Is it, yes, they're getting paid, and some of them get paid very well, but why is that? They know that I haven't pulled away from it, but I'll get a text from an employee and say, can you come talk to me? We need to talk. Or a GM say, I need to talk to you about, what's my future? So creating that culture starts with the leader. I mean, always. Are they going to follow you? Are they going to believe in what you're presenting? And for me, that was just, we've got to present this brand. And they saw my growth. The biggest challenge I had, Derek, when we had 3 stores, is I had great employees and they kept coming to me, Keith, what's the next step? What's the next step for me? You've got a great brand here. You've created a culture, but what's the next step? If I bring in partners and I can expand the brand, there's the opportunity for one guy to, instead of being a GM, to be a supervisor. Or can he be a franchise consultant? I mean, I look at our franchise consultant team and I hired half of them. They were my GMs, but they wanted the next step. Some of my shift leads are now GMs. They wanted the next step. I've got a cashier, actually Raul's wife, LB, Laura Beth. She's in our corporate office, and she's one of our head accountants, and she was a cashier when she was in high school. She went through college working at Taziki's. Now she is our CFO's right hand. Her and Gina are right-hand people. So I look in the opportunities that I have. That's how you create a culture, is that they don't want to go anywhere. Does that make sense? Do you believe that?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. You've described a lot of very key features of a strong culture.
So I think when we talk about franchisees, it's like, okay, when somebody calls the hotline or whatever, and they go on the website and they say, I want to look at a Taziki's franchise. Well, okay. Well, first you got to do what we call a day in a life. You got to meet the founder. And I'm in a ball hat right now. I wear a cap all the time. I wear either jeans and boots, and I'm going to work. And so I want to meet these people. There was one guy, one guy came in and he was meeting me, and he had on a suit. And I said, do me a favor, man. He said, what's that? I said, take your tie off. I said, it's intimidating, number one, because I don't wear ties. We work in Taziki's. He said, oh, I'm just, I want to impress. I said, no, take the tie off and let's get to work. Let me show you what we do on a daily basis. But it's those franchisees and the franchise partners who are going to create their culture. We've seen them fail. We've seen them succeed. And I think that's the challenge for me as still the founder. And I still love talking to our potential franchisees is that let's see if the culture fits. Let's see if I'm going to ride around with this guy in a car for all day, and we're going to talk to our employees. I'm going to get to know this dude. And I can tell by the 4 or 5 hours that I've spent with this guy, is he going to be a good partner? Or is he going to be a headache? Is he going to call me and blame me for stuff? Brother, listen, I can weed these people out in a heartbeat. So I've got to make sure that these guys are aligned and they understand hard work. And I think that's been number one, not me being the challenge, but a challenge to grow is you got to find the right partners. This is not a mailbox business. This is let's roll the sleeves up. Let's get him busy. And like you said, it's up to them to create that certain type of culture in the workplace. I've done it here. We've done it in Nashville. We've done it in Arkansas. We've done it in Atlanta. We've done it in Richmond. Now we have to rely on that new franchisee to build the team. And I'd say the challenges are getting harder daily because of people. But it's up to the franchisee to they got to create that culture. They've got to be passionate. Can you sell this to a guest? And I think that's what I love about Taziki's is that here's our menu, here's our recipes. It's your job to sell this brand to your community.
You've already answered some of this, but if somebody goes into a Taziki's or a Greek Street and they ask one of the employees there, what's it like to work here? What do you hope their honest answer will be?
I want them to all say, I enjoy the environment. Of course, they got to make money. Most of them know that I'm accessible. And I think, really it's who are they working? And not just me, but their managers and their supervisors. Who are they working for? What makes this job enjoyable? There's so many jobs out there. Oh my goodness. We've created this family in Taziki's. When I walk into a store and I'll get a text from Heather or McKenna and say, hey, tomorrow is Wynn's birthday or Ben's birthday. Are you going to be here? Of course I'm going to be there. It's their birthday. We celebrate birthdays, and we will have a cake. We'll have a party, and it'll only be quick because we get back to work. There's that family unit that's in Taziki's. I had an employee that worked for me for 15 years pass away this year. And I sat with him in his this hurts. Sorry. And I sat with him in his bed at the hospital, and I prayed with him and I held his hand. Sorry, Derek, I didn't expect this one.
Oh no, that's okay.
And he said, thank you. I said, no, brother, thank you. I appreciate the 15 years you worked. You're going to be fine. And he was going through cancer, and he said, you don't know what you've done for my family. And I said, well, why don't you tell me? I want to hear what have I done for your family? I've given you a job. You've been part of our Taziki's family. What have I done? I'm just curious. In his broken English, he said, Keith, you put my daughter through med school. Now she's my doctor.
Wow.
You put my son through engineering school. And it's like, wow. I just think I hire people and I pat them on the back. And so it's more than that. It's when the employee passes away, it hurts because we become friends and because we are family. And, you have to have the boundaries. But that was a very special moment for me that will I've had two employees, like, it was actually a brother and sister, both passed away. Knowing that there is this family unit to Taziki's, that's, you got to be proud of that. So I would hope that when you ask them, what's it like to work here? I feel at home. While yes, it's a job and I make money, but I'm supported. And, some people may say he's crazy. He's crazy talking. But I think that's what I've tried to give our employees that feel, is that you're part of a family and I support you and we love you and we want you here. I've had, managers call me and say, I found a better job. And I'm like, go for it, man. I want you. If I'm your stepping stone to a career, I've done my job. And sometimes they call me 6 weeks later and say, oh my gosh, I made the biggest mistake. Or they say, Keith, it wasn't better. This is my family. And that's special. That really goes a long way for me.
Tell me about navigating growth during a pandemic and the accompanying historically tight labor market. So many companies, especially in your industry, have had such a huge problem with retention, which sounds like it's not impacted you for the various reasons you talked about with culture, like it has many other companies. But can you talk a little bit about how you've navigated growth during all of that?
I was very, leery about COVID and what it was, but then it started hitting home. Actually, my CFO he got in the very beginning stages of this and was really, I talked to him and he said, Keith, I've sent my kids and my wife out of the house. I don't even know if I'm going to make it through this. I'm like, well, holy moly, this is some serious. But I think, my goal during this whole time was like, okay, I've got 300 and plus employees. I can't lose one of them because this thing will be over and I don't want to have to rebuild my staff. I don't have to rebuild my team. And we didn't. And actually the week when it really hit and the state was shutting stuff down, I had a vacation plan. And I looked at Amy and she says, what are you going to do? I said, there is no way in the world I can abandon this ship. This is my life. This is our life. And we canceled the vacation. My job was not to lay off, furlough anybody because I knew that it was going to go away and we had to figure this out. So we just got creative. Luckily with our partners, when they came in, years ago, the technology was with them. So we knew that we could do curbside. We knew that we could do pickup. The challenge was we just got to let everybody know that we're doing it. So our phone was going off the hook. We had already had slight curbside and online ordering. Then it blew up. It was crazy. And while our sales went down, which was okay, we had sales coming in. No employee was let go or laid off. I moved Ashley from the catering call center because the catering just, depleted. I moved her into one of the stores because it took, believe it or not, it took more people to manage the curbside and the phone orders than it does on a regular daily basis.
Wow.
So I used the staff, and of course I wasn't hitting my labor numbers that I wanted or my profit. I didn't care. I was not going to lose an employee over this. In the very beginning, is that how do we grow the brand through marketing? Is that, we have to get out to the community. We got to go to the churches. We got to go to the school. And yes, I'll give you $250 to put your name on the back of a T-shirt while the kids run up and down the block because I believe in the community. I believe in giving. They reciprocated. It was a beautiful thing. So we would call the schools and our LSMs know the teachers. We're talking to when we market a neighborhood, we're going to get to know everybody. So we knew we had all these contacts. We had a list of contacts, people who we had catered for already, schools. And we said, okay, we want to do neighborhood drops. Well, tell us what you're talking about. Well, we want you to send out an email, an internal email to all your parents and say, hey, Taziki's is doing a feast for $25. It feeds for $2 if you want to add sweet tea, blah, blah, blah. So we created this little package. So we went to Chelsea High School. We went to Vincent High School, Shelby County High School. We went to all these schools in Vestavia and all these businesses and stuff that we had relationships with. We did these dinner drops. And so we would set up our big delivery van would open up. We'd throw up a tent and people would swing by. And we were started kind of 50 here, 20 there. And the next thing you know, we're breaking 100 dinners. We're breaking 200 dinners. And so I thought, okay, this is how we're going to keep everybody employed. We're going to continue to press this, and we're not going to let off again, it was kind of goes back to the very beginning of Taziki's is that failure was not an option. And it was the same thing as that oh, and you want to talk about nervous, brother. I thought, I've got 22 years of this business. I cannot let one pandemic break me. There is no way I worked this hard and can let it go away. I was not going to let this happen. So we had to be creative, and we made it happen. Failure was not an option. And I was proud of the team. We didn't lose any. I mean, I'm talking 0 employees. I mean,
that's an incredible.
Isn't that?
That's incredible.
It was tough. It was working and trying to be creative. We cut down our menu to go to a smaller menu. We continued to reach out to everybody and everybody. I mean, we'd have lines at the restaurant, calling, pick up. And we managed it. And oh my gosh, I am so proud of our team for doing that. What if I let Ashley down? And she's got mouth to feed. Now Kelly has been with me for 13 years, and she's a catering specialist. And she calls me and she said, Keith, what am I going to do? My job is a catering specialist. So I make money off delivering catering. I said, Kelly, come in the store. You're going to take a little hit. We're all going to take a hit. And that's me included. But at the end of the day, we're not going to lose, and we're not going to lose our jobs. And you're going to feed your kids. I mean, and honestly, I would let our employees take food home. You couldn't find toilet paper. I mean, it was crazy. So we've got mega supplies of toilet paper. Take it home to your family, and let's take care of our family. And eventually we'll come, full circle. This will go away. Thank the good Lord. It's gone away. I think there's still remnants of it, but in our world, we're back. Now
Wow.
There's other challenges with, the cost of gas and what COVID did to the workforce outside of Taziki's. We're still paying the price, and it may never go back, but we're going forward.
That's an incredible story of so many different things, including the difference between being able to maintain your employment and what so many other companies went through and how they turned out. Can you share a summary of the Taziki's and Greek Street stories, past, present, and projected future?
Sure. So you kind of hit it on the very beginning, is that Amy and I took a trip in 1997 to Greece. I really fell in love with a couple of things, the food and the culture. I think it was really the culture part. And, we were on an island for, I think it was 4 or 5 days. We were bouncing around, and it was island of Kos. And while we did not know the language, we had a kind of, a meeting with, not minds or hearts or brains or love or passion, but we met an older couple that owned a restaurant, and we just fell in love with them. While there was no communication because of our language barrier, there was the sense of appreciation. And, we went to that restaurant, Derek. I mean, 4 times. We were there 5 nights. We went there 4 nights. We were there, and we fell in love with the people. And I thought, I looked at Amy and I said, when we get back to Birmingham, I would really love to open a small little cafe similar to this. I had been in the restaurant business pretty much probably since I was, I would say 15 was my first job in the world or scene of it wasn't so much restaurants, but dealing with guests. And that was at Baskin Robbins. Unfortunately, they only lasted a day, but I loved, that's another story. But I just love and I think that's what really brought me out to who I am. I mean, it was kind of a recluse as a child. I didn't talk a lot, but it really, dealing with guests and dealing with people really brought it out. So I would say really hit home at 18, kind of fell in love with the hospitality business. We opened what we call T1, that's Taziki's one in Colonnade in 1998. The challenge was when we got back from Greece and I told Amy, hey, I want to open this cafe. She said, well, honey, we have no money. And at that time she was working for US Airways, and I was working with Frank at Bottega, and just, loving every day. But I knew there was something different and bigger for me. Quick story. We were, trying to figure out how could we raise $50,000. And of all the guests I had in Bottega, the customers, the clientele, the lawyers, no one would let me borrow $50,000.
Oh man.
and even in the banks, and the banks were kind of like, Keith, we love you. You take care of us at Bottega, but no, it's like, but it's just $50,000. So we actually went to our bank, and he said, what do you have in your house? We had just bought a small little house in Homewood. And he said, you don't have the equity, but I'll tell you what, I will give you a line of credit for $50,000. But that's all I can give you. And I don't know why I picked that number, but so we scouted around and looked at restaurant auctions. So we started buying used equipment. So with that $50,000, we went and opened it up. I mean, it was basically, I cannot fail. I've got to be passionate about this. I cannot lose, because if I lose my house. Fast forward, we opened T1, which is in the Colonnade. Then we opened T2, which was our Mountain Brook location. And at that time, we were, trying to have kids. It didn't work. But right before we opened Mountain Brook, Amy became pregnant with our first set of twins.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, okay, this will be fun. I'll have two kids. I'll have two restaurants. I can give one to each child, and we're done. Well, we decided to open our third restaurant in 2004 in the Greystone area out at Lee Branch. I guess it was God's plan to say, hey, you need two more children. So we had another set of twins in 2004. So at this time, I had three restaurants and four kids. So I'm like, I've got to build one more restaurant for one more kid. But there was another direction that we went, and at that time, we had worked hard. I had a good staff. We were growing the sales. Lee Branch was the challenge. It was kind of hidden. The site was hidden. So I kind of spent my days and my nights and my weekends, even after church, working that store, and built it up to it became successful and started making some money. I'd say probably 7 or 8 years after that, I was approached. I've been approached probably through the years of growing the brand, but I needed to find the right partner. And I think it was 2010, 2011 that I did find a partner who'd been in the business, and his vision aligned with mine. His passion for food and my business aligned with mine. With our group, I became a partnership. And so that kind of took off, and that was, let's see how we can build this. Our future is let's continue to grow the brand. I think we've got a brand that withstands time. I was telling the marketing students at Sanford this week, I said, we use 90% of the original menu. And it's 24 years old. That's something to think about when you look at brands and you look at menus, is that, yes, we've added LTOs, we've added different components to the menu, but the core of the very first menu, the core of it's still there, and the passion's still there. So our goal, the future-wise, is to continue building the brand. I'm actually in the process of doing two myself here, kind of outside of Birmingham and near Birmingham, because we know that people love the food.
The locations you've discussed so far, when you were talking about the Colonnade and Lee Branch and Mountain Brook, those are all in Birmingham, Alabama. And then you grew from there to other states. So how many states are you in now?
We're in 15 states right now. Yes.
Nice. You have a particular philosophy about where a business should connect with meaning in other people's lives. I think that's unique from a lot of restaurants. Can you share a little bit about that?
We have a culture compass that we use, and connection is the main one. It's how do we connect? There's a word we use. Aristotle brought it to the forefront, and it's in Americans they say eudaimonia. Well, in Greece, it's evdaimonia. So it translates to a good spirit, happiness, a good place in your body, and a feeling that you get. Our goal is, how do we translate that word? How do we continue that spirit and that happiness? And really, it's not really only life that's the happiness; it's the job. I look at it as kind of twofold. It's happiness from a guest comes in and they're feeling a euphoric feel after they eat a salmon salad on a Mediterranean salad with a grilled salmon. But it's also how do we push that on to our employees? And it's a feeling of happiness, of nourishment, and that's something that I will strive for daily. I think I have a really good connection with our employees here. Understanding that philosophy and bringing that to the guests and to our employees, I think it makes a difference, because there is a purpose. I think everybody's life should have a purpose. So I think the evdaimonia really kind of projects what we do in Taziki's.
Thank you for sharing that. You touched on this a little bit earlier. From 1998 until 2012, you were the president of Taziki's. Then you pivoted to focus primarily on growing the national franchising efforts, which now includes 15 states and over 90 locations total, including the ones that are corporately owned. Now you've pivoted again to manage the flagship market in Birmingham, Alabama, as well as to continue to manage the culinary research and development and to lead the Hope Project, your signature charity. Can you tell me about these significant pivots and the role changes and how you knew it was time for role changes? Because that seems to be really hard for a lot of company founders.
Yeah, it is. So in the beginning, I'm the CEO, I'm the COO, I'm the dishwasher, I'm the training guy. It's when you have one or two or three stores like we did, I was everything. I was the one that came up with the menu items, the LTOs, the specials, the hiring, the firing. The larger we grew in just Birmingham, then I reached out and said, hey, I need a supervisor. I need some really good managers because I've got, again, 4 children. So I've got to figure out and kind of delegate these roles. As we grew and I brought in the partnership, the question was, Keith, can you continue to build this? And, looking at, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses. And I thought, I can make money in 3 or 4 or 5 stores. I can run them, but taking a brand from 5 to 50, I don't have that expertise, and nor do I really want to have that much stress on me. So Jim Keat was our first CEO, and he was our first franchisee, and he'd been in the business, in the Wendy's business, growing his brand, and we thought this is a perfect fit. So I kind of stepped back and said, why don't I continue to grow the brand by the franchise route, and who are they going to trust more than the founder? My heart's in it, my soul's in it, blood, sweat, and tears are in it. So it was a really easy transition for me. While I was still passionate about the brand and still kind of running the Birmingham market, I had to sell the brand. People would come to Birmingham if they were interested in the brand and they met the criteria. They would come to Birmingham, hang out with me for a day, and get to know them. So that was easy for me. I would say probably I continue to lead the culinary part, but now I've brought on Raul. Came with me. Oh, he's been an employee for 19 years, Raul Hernandez. And so I tell people now, he's been with me so long, he understands my palate. So I can something to make and just give him a suggestion and throw him some recipes, and he will fine tune it and come back and say, what do you think? And usually they're a hit right off the bat. What I found while we were traveling, and we were doing the franchise shows and, setting up a booth in Schaumburg, Illinois, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And while that was all fun, I was away from my family and my stores. So I decided, the road life is not for me. I love being home. I'm kind of a home body. So that's when I made a decision. Let's just come back 100% and just let me continue to run my Birmingham store and grow the people and grow and continue to grow the business here in Birmingham, which we've done. The philanthropy has always been in my blood. It's always the giving, and how do you've been rewarded by your hard work. How do you give back? I think God has that plan in us to say, hey, you've been given this, now it's time to give back. And the creation of HOPE, which is Herbs Offering Personal Enrichment, the acronym, it really started with the hiring of special needs. And that came from believe it or not, a cruise to Cancun in Mexico. I met Cindy Vincent, who was a job coach for Shelby County, just happened to be on the same boat, came back. She said, have you ever thought about hiring special needs? And I guess I missed out in life because I wasn't around the kids. She brought Brandy Niven, about 17, 17, I'd say 17 years ago, to Taziki's, and really said, hey, Brandy's here, and put her to work. She can work 3 to 4 hours, a day, whatever you want her. And here's her mother, Donna. We call her Mama D. I could not shake it. The thing is, we went in Brandy and teach her to, and I hold all the Hope kids accountable like I do all my employees. But we wanted to work with Brandy one-on-one and help her grow. But Mama D would not disappear. So we used Mama D. Mama D would make all the sweet tea at Lee Branch, and it was just, they had a team. So that kind of grew from Lee Branch. Let's find students for Mountain Brook. Let's find students for Colonnade. And then as the brand grew, all the restaurants in Birmingham, we were hiring the special needs as well. So that was really a big thing for me. I loved it. I still love it. I was talking about the other day, we have Win, one of our students, well, now he's graduated now, Win's 30 something, but just when he came in, he was just, this really shy young man that was, reclusive, didn't really talk a lot. Well, we welcomed him to our family, and then, he blossomed. His attitude changed. His personality, it shows. It was just a beautiful, it's like watching a crop grow. It's just the most beautiful thing. And then it just, you fall in love with these kids. So I was really passionate about that, and with 2 employees at each store and work together. Gosh, Steven's been with us for, I call him G Money. He's been with me for, I want to say 15 years. Wynn's been the same. But the goal with Hope was not only, okay, I can only hire X amount of employees in the restaurant. How can we get this bigger? How can I continue to hire employees? And Cindy had brought to my attention, she said the students at Vincent Elementary are growing these little herbs in these solo cups. And I said, meet me tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I think I've got an idea. So went home, thought about it. Actually, my son was at at fencing, which that was funny. But there was a kid in there, and he had a shirt on the back end that said Hope. And I'm sitting there going, I'm bouncing off Amy. I'm like, I've got to figure out the name for this. I said, I like Hope. And then I came over with herbs offering personal enrichment. And I'm like, Hope, there it is. So told Cindy what I wanted to do is I want to go out to Vincent, and I want to talk to the principal and the school board and see if I could plant the herbs that we use in the restaurant. Could they plant those for us, and can create a vendor type where they grow them, we buy them, they make money, they spend the money on what they want in the school, and we dedicate it only to the students, special needs. And they did that. They were very welcoming. The Board of Education loved the idea, and now we've grown it. I think we have it in 6 schools now here in Birmingham. So the herbs that you see in Taziki's, I'd say 50, 60% of them, because we use so many, thank goodness, they come from the Hope Gardens.
Wow.
So that's how we expanded the Hope. We call it the Hope Project. Is, now during school, the students that are in school during the summer, they work, class time they work, and they've even taken it further. I like to seed things and kind of watch them grow. The teachers at Shelby County High, solely in Dustin Cleckler, they have taken it to the next level. And so they've created this whole platform of learning with the Hope Project, the weighing, the calculation of the cost of herbs. And now we've got gardens, open gardens. We've got greenhouses full of our herbs. That's one of my proudest moments. That makes me happy. That makes me very happy.
Wow, that's really meaningful. So where the money that it raises, that Hope receives, how do you distribute that to have an impact?
So it goes back to the school. So the school, they dictate, like, we had enough money to buy the tables for the greenhouse. It's really cool in Vincent and in Shelby County High School, they raised enough money to redo their whole kitchen. So now they got it built out where it's, handicapped accessible. And also, they got new sinks. We bought scales. Their money, they invest their money back in their students. We have kind of a show and tell day with the Hope students. We've got 2 this month that we bring them in. We show them where the herbs go. We, feed them, and they understand what they're doing makes a difference. But that's their money's directed. I wanted to make sure that when we did this, that it was directed went only back into the Hope Foundation or their Hope School, the project in their school, and that's exactly what it does.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Then they'll bring them. Jennifer, one of our very first Hope teachers, she would bring them to Birmingham and take them to a movie. It was and it still is a beautiful thing. I love Hope.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
Now that you're back in a more creative role, tell me about how you generate ideas, and when do they happen? How do you facilitate them? And how do you cull the good ones from the bad ones? How does all that work in your process?
I'll look at recipes that I see online or I see on TV, or when we go to Greece and I'll walk down the streets and I'll go, oh my gosh, I love this. And I'll take a picture of it and I'll try to dissect what's in that item or that presentation. And how can I bring it back and make it better? The challenge is with 90 plus stores is in the old Taziki's world. 3 stores, I could order something. I'd go pick it up from the farmer's market, or I would, call my seafood guy, or I'd call Glenn, my guy at US Foods, and I'd have something brought over. I would taste it, test it, and go, boom, it's in the system. And we would just play with items every night, specials every night. But the challenge when you grow, you've got 90 something stores. It's like, how do I get this to 90 stores? So I have to be really conscious on what I create and the recipe ingredients, because the challenge of being, now a franchise business is that how do I get those products to those stores? So like I created something and I'm like, okay, well, my goal is to continue to try to use the ingredients that we already have, because I have to sell like so many cases to even get a slot, what we call our Gordon Food Service in their warehouse. I've got to sell X amount. And what's my projection sales? Well, again, the old Tazikis, I'd put this stuff out there, it'd sell, I'd make it again next weekend. So this is it's different now. It's changed. So what me and Raul usually do is that we'll take an ingredient, I'll find something, let's say the whipped feta is a prime example. So Mike, our COO, said, "Hey, I want you to come to Nashville. This old restaurant I like is doing this whipped feta. Have you ever made whipped feta?" And I said, "No." So I took a drive up to Nashville, went to the restaurant, ate it, but they were using like organic honey. Well, and that's okay for a single restaurant, but it's going to be hard for me to get organic honey to 90 stores. So I had to be really, again, conscious about that. A lot of the things I look at is that what can I use in produce that my produce vendors can get? Like I've been using Don now for 24 years, and I can, call Don and say, "Hey, can you get me local honey?" "Yes." "Where is it from?" "Well, it's from Chelsea or it's from Coleman." Perfect. But again, it takes time. So once the recipe's built, I mean, Derek, sometimes it'll take 6 months to a year to even get in the system. But what I do here in Birmingham is I'll run an LTO. I'll say, like for instance, we got the new lamb burgers coming up. Ground lamb is easy to get to everywhere, but then I had to use the items that we have inside the store to finish the product. But I started with this, maybe last summer, we ran LTO, the lamb burger, and it was a hit. So we're going to put it in all the brands, in all the Tazikis, but it takes time. And I think that's, to me, I like to get things done quick. I hate waiting. So that's the challenge for me, to kind of bite my tongue and just kind of go with the flow. The taste buds in Cincinnati, Ohio are different than the taste buds, believe it or not, in Birmingham, Alabama. And they're different in, Little Rock, Arkansas or Oklahoma. It's kind of crazy. But that's the truth. So we have to be we have to look and say, we got to be conscious about our franchisees as well.
That's really fascinating. And I actually had some of your whipped feta 3 nights ago, so I can definitely say that was a good addition to the menu.
I had it last night for dinner. So, and that's one of those things that it's easy. I came the recipe and now it's on the menu. It's stuck on the menu. It's sold that much. And it's like, yes, there's some items I try. We did a 3 mac and cheese with the feta cheese, the Parmesan, and the cheddar. And of course I had to use feta to make it Mediterranean. And, it just didn't sell. And it's like, what? My feelings are hurt. I'm in a corner, crying. And I'm like, this is the best mac and cheese. And we still have people here in Birmingham. But again, it's time consuming. I mean, everybody knows to make really good mac and cheese, it takes time. We don't use the bag in the box. We had to bowl, So there are definitely challenges.
I can only imagine. Well, is there anything that I did not ask you about that you wish I would have, and anything you want to add?
No, you I think in the pre-notes you said something about working with Frank, and I think that's very important. That was very important in my career, in my restaurant career.
Because people listen that are outside of Birmingham, maybe let me just clarify. You're talking about Frank Stitt, whose restaurant in 2018 was named by the James Beard Award, which is the major award for restaurants, as the best restaurant in America. And you worked for him. So just some quick background for the people not from Birmingham.
Yeah. So, Frank is a very, very passionate man. So you got to remember, it's some of the people that have worked at Bottega. They say, "Oh yeah, I worked at Bottega." And I was like, "Yeah, but where were you?" And I'm like, "Well, that's been 24 years ago." And I saw Frank a while back, and I was like, gosh, if I was still working there, I'd be working there 34 years. I mean, that's long. I guess I'd have to retire, but so I started working there right when we opened the cafe. We had the restaurant, and of course, my background was not really. It was in, I guess customer service, hospitality, and the restaurant, waiting tables, bartending. But working with Frank, and it really took me about a year and a half to really get to the role, to the managing role in there. It didn't take me long to get in there. But what I learned about Frank is that, in every boss, you learn what to do and what not to do, and you take those how you want to take them. But Frank is very passionate, and I think and it's about food. He can be passionate about employees, but it's really about the food. While me coming in there, I was like, asparagus is asparagus, and it's really not. I think all you gotta do is blanch it or throw it on the grill, add butter and a little seasoning and asparagus. But it's more than that, and it was a lot of it was when I opened Taziki's. I said I want to be like a Bottega. I'm using the same products that we used at Bottega, but I'm going to put it on a little cheaper plate, and I'll charge less. But I want them to know that the passion that Frank had, that was instilled in me, was take care of the food. I mean, it goes beyond that. Let's say that band of asparagus you got, or the case of Roma tomatoes that we get from Chandler Mountain in Alabama. Well, guess what? Those weren't just you put in $45 and you get a case. Somebody grew those things, and so somebody's family is living off the sales of tomatoes. So take pride in what you're in the food that you're serving. I mean, it goes kind of the asparagus. Would you want that asparagus farmer to watch you burn or throw away his passion? I mean, yeah, it's his livelihood. How would that make that dude feel, or that woman feel, if you're not passionate about that's their livelihood. So we really have to take in consideration, it's not just what we're serving. We got to take it back. I talked about seeding things. You got to take it back to the seed, and how was this grown? How does this affect this person? How is this their livelihood? So I think that was something that I ran away with Frank. I thought about, what? He's really passionate about food. And yes, people are involved as well, but how do you place that? So when I was building the plates for Taziki's, I would go back and say, well, we did this at Bottega. This is how we placed asparagus on the plate. We made it center, or we face this way, or we pronounced the feta cheese this way. We wanted to, when we take pictures of our food for the website or LTOs or whatever, there's very little makeup that goes on it, because this is what you're going to get in the store. I always say feta makes it better, because it's easy to bring out white in the cheese, but you got to respect the food. You have to, because it's nourishing, right? It's going to your body. It's keeping you healthy, but yet it's keeping those farmers. It's keeping the growers. It's keeping the businesses out there, and keeping families in business. And I think once we lose that passion for what we're serving, then we're just putting out slop, right?
Yeah.
I think that was, I love Frank, and I love Pardis, and still talk to him. That was something that I walked away with going, you know what? You got to be passionate about the food. I had the people part, but it was the food that I really needed to concentrate on.
Wow.
And I tell our guys like Najee, I've known Najee Constantine that owns Juju's Pita, before we even opened, and Don, our produce guy, and PJ with Alicia's Chutney. When I opened Taziki's, I said, I want to be your biggest and your best customer. And let me tell you right now, Derek, if I picked up the phone and called PJ and said, I need a jar of chutney at Colonnade, it would be there. If I called Don and said, hey man, my guy forgot a case of tomatoes, he won't ask me. Well, he'll say, what store do you need it? And he's on his way. The same thing with my friend George Saris. I do a lot of stuff. We import stuff from Greece. I called him day before yesterday. I need some pepperoncinis. Where? George, I want to be your best and biggest customer and your favorite. I mean, I like to be everybody's favorite. Najee's the same way. Najee, I got a problem with something. I'm on my way. And, creating those relationships goes back to the culture and goes back to what our beliefs is that It goes back to the evthimonia, the happiness, the nourishment, the flourishing that you get, not just in life, but how do you give that to somebody else? When my mom passed away, of course, it was heartbreaking. There were so many people. Somebody told me, they go, your mom had more people at her service than Bear Bryant did. And I took that as a compliment. And growing up in Central Park, right outside of Birmingham, small little community, my mom touched so many people. That's one of my goals when I pass away. Man, I want people to know me that can say, Keith changed my life. And that's, to me, that's the evthimonia. That's the human flourishing. That's our job in life.
Well, that's an excellent way to wrap things up. And thank you again so much for the valuable time you shared recording this podcast and thinking about the questions in advance. Talking with you has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
For the convenience of those listening, we will post a link to Taziki's and the Greek Street websites, a link to your bio and any other resources that we've discussed. Those can be found online at brainchatterpodcast.com. Thank you very much, Keith.
Derek, thank you so much.
Brain Chatter is a production of Ken Chapman & Associates Incorporated. We assist clients across North America and beyond with leadership development, corporate culture transformation initiatives, behavior-based professional development for health and safety issues, individual and team assessments, conflict and performance management, succession planning, and team building, making a difference in organizations and individuals' lives for over 40 years. Learn more at leaderscode.com. Thank you for your time.